Okay, so looks like it's recording and it's live, and I think people are now joining. Hello. Um, so hello and salams, and to everybody who's joining in or whoever is going to watch it online later. My name is Noor, and it's been a long time since I did this. So it's been, I don't know how many months, and I don't think I did it very often, even earlier. So anyways, so I am doing this as a follow-up to a homeschool support meeting that I did on Thursday. Basically, I organize these meetings. We've been doing it since 2017. I get really nice school mamas from my community, and they come and they share their wisdom with a lot of new homeschoolers, and homeschoolers who have been doing it for a while. We talk about education, parenting, all that good stuff, and we find out kind of like support amongst ourselves. Like we feel that sense of community by getting together like that. So we talked about a couple of things, and I have that recording, and I will upload that later, but I'm going to take off on a different tangent right now. I wanted to talk a little bit about Charlotte Mason. Basically, Charlotte Mason education is based on the work of a British educator named Charlotte Mason. And just yesterday I found out that actually she was, the entire first volume that she wrote is based on her lectures that she was giving to support her church. So I don't know if you guys are interested in all that history, but I just wanted to share a few things about her. And what I really appreciate about that education method is that it fits natural life beautifully. And one of the cornerstone of, she has like a lot of principles laid out in her 6th book. I don't know if I want to get into all this, and before I talk about giving a little bit of introduction why I want to talk about her. So maybe we can dive into this later. Okay, so coming back to who I am and what I'm doing here. My name is Noor, and I've been homeschooling for the last 7 years. I have 2 boys, ages 9 and 6, and I have tried out many different ways of, many different kinds of homeschooling. And right now what I have, concluded is that what works for me is what I want to stick with. And that's what I always share with my friends. And, a lot of other veteran homeschoolers end up saying the same thing, that, you want to learn from different ideas and techniques, but eventually you have to do what suits your family, your children, and your personality. So I just need to check something. I don't know if am I live on this? Oh, no, I think I'm live on this. So yeah, I think I'm live on this. If anybody can see on Facebook, I can see that people can see me on Facebook now. Okay. So anyways, so what I noticed about Charlotte Mason education is that it fits with natural life very beautifully. I read about her much later in my journey, and when I was reading about her recommendations and her philosophy, I felt like a lot of these things I naturally have been doing, like the nature walk that she talks about. We were doing it as a family already, and the reason I was doing it because there was another mother who had recommended that if you have boys and if they're making you pull your hair out, you want to take them outdoors as much as you can, because if you boys have a lot of energy, and it kind of is calming for them if they're outdoors and they play and everything. So I started doing that. I think it's been 5 years since I've been doing that. So we were already going outdoors, and I started to notice that I feel calmer and more happier when I go out, and they tend to be more calm, and it's easier to teach them when they can get their energy out. So when I was reading her stuff, and she's a religious woman, so she's also talking about how you want the children to connect with the one who created all of this and things like that. So as a Muslim, I could relate with that, because I felt whenever I was out in the nature, I felt like it's like dhikr, it's like remembering God and praising him, and so it was like kind of resonated with me on so many levels. Another principle of Charlotte Mason is narration. And actually, that's what I'm going to talk about in depth right now. Narration, also incidentally, my husband was already, kind of telling me that you should do narration with the boys and make them retell. And he didn't use that term narration. He said, why don't you make them retell what they're learning? And that will help them review. And I was always like, yeah, but I don't get the time to do it, or, something like that. But when I started to read about it in the Charlotte Mason books, I was like, she's talking about it as a tool, and how it helps the child connect the different ideas and form beautiful sentences and express. So it also develops the habit of attention. Like when you are reading a passage to the child and then asking them to narrate it back to you, they develop the habit of paying attention when you're reading. So it again ties into that habit of attention, and being able to retell means that they have to think about putting those ideas together, those sentences together. They have to think about the grammar. Like there's so much indirect learning that happens, and it feels so natural. Like obviously we all it's a natural thing. Like if we go out for a walk and come back, and you are basically telling what you saw, it's like a natural exercise. Like you are talking about what you saw. So she was doing that. She suggests that right from the young age. In her first book, she talks about, sending, going for picnics and sending the children off and let them explore and tell them to come back and narrate what they saw. So that's nature narration. So again, it's just retelling of what they observe. Even in picture study, you stare at a picture and then you describe the picture. And then with a passage, if you read them a passage, they are, basically they read the passage and then they have to retell the things in the passage. So it calls on the child to think about all the events, the sequence of the events. It makes them pay attention, and it makes them think about the sentence structure as they are retelling it. So it hits on so many of these goals, and it seems like a natural exercise, because we want to retell. So, and this skill, she recommends that you start building the skill from the age 6, the oral narration. And it doesn't stop. It all the way until 18 years of age, you have to narrate. So it's a skill that gradually builds. So let's say I start with a simple, like with my younger one, I'm doing like Aesop's fables right now. I read him an Aesop's fable and then I ask him to narrate it back. And it's not, it may not come naturally, because the younger kids kind of get skeptical, like, why are you asking me to retell what you just told me? You just read the story to me. Why should I retell? Also, it will take time for them to understand why, how to do it and get the hang of it. And as the children grow, the complexity of the passages or the book that you're reading increases basically. So when a child is retelling, they have to, first of all, they have to pay attention in the beginning when you're reading. Secondly, they have to begin from the start. And I don't know if you've ever tried this, and I have been doing that ever since I started doing this. I read a passage and then I'm like, let me try and retell this. And it's so difficult to come up with the start, just to start that, break that ice and begin. It's, oh no, okay, I'm still here. Yeah. So so that is what narration is. It's a simple exercise of retelling, and it's also helpful to do it. Like, let's say I read a passage of history yesterday, and today I'm doing the next chapter of history. And if it's related, then you can even begin with, do you remember what we did last time? Or, they have to kind of retell that, and then you begin from there. So they have to connect with what happened the previous day in the read aloud, and then connect it to what is happening in the read aloud today. So they learn, so our mind is amazing. Like, if you look at comprehension questions in comparison, when you're reading a passage and asking them specific questions like, what was the color of the of the flower, let's say. So they have to pick that one piece of information from their brain and give the answer, right? And plus you have already kind of pinpointed a very specific part of the passage and asking them questions about that. Compare that to a child who has to begin from the start and sequence that entire chain of events that they heard about from the passage and structure it, keeping the grammar in mind, and say it back. So it is a much more complex process because they are not, our mind, when it's connecting different pieces, it's like a train of thought, So they learn to do that, which is a far superior educational experience than just giving random answers that are from the, like you're basically drawing in the information and conveying it rather than picking small pieces of information and communicating. So there's a huge difference between the two. Like even when you ask, like that's why they say that, when you ask questions, even if you read a passage and ask questions like, do you think this character, what do you think you would do if you were in that situation? So that kind of a question forces the child to think of the big picture. You cannot just pull one piece of information and answer that kind of a question. It's a very wholesome question. So that's why they say that, you should ask those kind of questions, which make them draw in the information and, process it all together, look at the big picture and then answer. So that's what kind of happens with narration. And you will notice that when they're younger, they might just retell as is. But as they get older, they start interjecting their insight and, their point of views. And I noticed that with my older one now, like he will interject and give his opinions in that. And that's a superior skill, So it's not a very simple exercise. It looks deceptively simple, but it builds serious skills. And Charlotte Mason education doesn't emphasize, like you don't really learn grammar as a separate subject. You don't really learn it. So, and even spelling for that matter. So all of that comes in from reading good literature and narrating back. So I really personally love all of this about this approach because I feel like it's such a natural way of teaching things rather than, artificially trying to do it through comprehension exercises. And it really does build skills. And this is hard for me to kind of put it down, but you have to just experiment with this to know how superior this is. Oral narration also helps with, it prepares you for the written narration or the writing. It's like a pre-writing skill. The reason is writing is actually two components. When you write something, you are constructing sentences. You're expressing something. You're constructing sentences in your mind and you're putting them in the right order and you're sequencing them and you are doing all of that while you're also writing it down. So there's the mechanics part of it where you're writing it down, and then there is also the the part where you're thinking about what you're going to say and how you're going to structure the sentence and etc. So this oral narration, when it starts with age 6 until age 10 or 9, when it's recommended that you start the written narration, the child is getting to practice the first part of writing, right? So the first aspect of writing, which is getting the sentences together, thinking about all the ideas, formulating them into sentences, thinking about the structure and all of that is happening. So that step happens again and again as a daily habit. And then when they are ready with their hands and they're capable of putting it down on paper, this part has already been rehearsed enough number of times and then they can do it easily. So that's what she recommends. And I think this is such a natural way of teaching. Like, so many kids struggle with the penmanship and the writing. When you ask them to write and when they have to really think and write, the children are not able to do it. That's why we do copy work instead of like making them really do creative writing when they're younger. Copy work will just kind of train their hands and stuff like that because it's easy and they already have a sample sentence in front of them. So this is kind of another advantage of doing oral narration. But she doesn't stop at the point where they start doing the written narration. Even after they are able to write the written narrations, they continue doing the oral narrations. So oral narration is a very important part of it, and I think it would add to the public speaking element and expression. It's such a natural and easy way to kind of learn self-expression. I think it's amazing. So that was a little bit about the Charlotte Mason's narration method. I wanted to come back to a little bit about myself, because I think it's important to complete my point. I started homeschooling like 7 years ago, 2012. So when I was looking into homeschooling, actually a little bit of a background before that. So we had moved to different cities within the US because we were looking for a good school for our children. My son was just 2.5, but we were like kind of like the proactive parents. We wanted to find a good school, a private school. So we did find some nice private schools in our city, but they were secular private schools. And we were looking for a place where they can get the more, they can even learn about our beliefs and things like that. But we didn't have any good schools in our city. So we moved to different cities, and what I ended up noticing is like none of the schools that I looked at satisfied what I was looking for and what my husband was looking for. So we eventually moved back, and then I had a friend who was doing cyber schooling at that time. So I looked into cyber schooling, and then cyber schooling was also like, it was like, it didn't appeal to me because it was like just like a school. Like the school sends you the curriculum, they tell you what to do, and I think in the beginning I did consider it. I ordered Calvert, I was doing the K-12, like I ordered different things and I was trying them out, but I always felt that there was so much fluff in that. Like there was like big binders giving you all the instructions to teach phonics, and it was very intimidating and very overwhelming. So I kind of got done with it like within a year. I was because my son was young, I could afford reading about homeschooling while I was doing that. So basically I would get these books from library, like I read the entire John Holt series, who's the main whose works inspired the unschooling movement. Then I read John Taylor Gatto, who critiques the educational system, and then I started reading about Maria Montessori, and actually she kind of really inspired me to kind of her ideas really inspired me to kind of set up a Montessori in my house. And so we were doing that in our basement, and I was really doing it by the book at that time. And but again, like looking back now, when I think about it, I feel like there's so much of it which overwhelms the parents. There's so much that if you start looking into a philosophy or a method, there's so much to learn. So as a homeschooler, you're already increasing your work, you're adding extra responsibility, and then you also have all these extra pressure of learning about the new different ways of educating. And who can relate with this? If you can relate with this, just message me or comment, because I feel like I'm not interacting. So if you can just message me, who can relate with this? Like this whole overwhelm that you feel as a homeschooler, where you don't know, like how much there is to learn, and there's so much going on. I'll wait for a few seconds. Right? Thank you, Hafsa, for responding, because looking at the screen and talking is weird, guys. I don't know. I do the meetings all the time, but I never lose track of what I want to say. But whenever I do like a live where I'm staring at a phone or an iPad and talking, it's just weird. So yeah, so we have this problem, right? Like how much we are adding additional work, right, to learn these different things. And there is so much benefit in learning these things. But what I noticed is, as a young homeschooler, when I just began, I would take everything by the book, and I would try to implement it without having any regard for who I am as a person, what my children are like, and what my family dynamics are like, where do I come from, like all of those things were kind of like secondary. Oh, this looks exciting, or this sounds appealing to me, and let me try this, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to learn all about it, and I'll try to implement this. And then I would kind of over a period of time realize that maybe this is not for me, because this is either overwhelming me, or I'm getting impatient with my child, or those type of things. I'll give an example. So I was every fall, as we get ready to start school, I decide I can't do this. I've been doing this for 20 years. So yeah, you see what I'm saying, right? Like this happens to all of us. So what I noticed, and this is, one second, I just need to put the charger in this guy because it's, okay. So, this overwhelm aspect is so important to address. Like, we may have all the amazing techniques, we may have all the amazing ideas, and something may sound cool on paper and in books, but at the end of the day, we have to sustain it in our homes, right? We have to sustain our marriages, we have to keep a healthy relationship with our children, we have to do all of those things, right? Now, you guys must be wondering, why did I jump from Charlotte Mason to all of this? Because the point I'm trying to make is, like, when you look into any educational method or philosophy or ideas, think, is it teaching you something that will simplify your homeschooling experience, your family experience? If it's not going to make it simpler and easier, and if it doesn't seem like you can continue for a long time, don't waste your time with it. I did that for many years. I think I don't know, I did the Montessori, I did the classical method for a while, and then I realized that the classical method is amazing. I like the way it's laid out and everything. A lot of things in it appeal to me, but then I cannot do it exactly the way it's set in stone. If you read The Well-Trained Mind and you try to seriously follow it, it burns you out. And it didn't match well with my children's personalities. So it didn't work for me. So I couldn't do it exactly the way it's suggested in those books. Same thing with unschooling. I love unschooling as an idea, but I can't be so like completely unstructured. It's just not going to work for me. So, and as my children have the unschoolish, like we all do we follow elements of unschooling in our home. But I knew that I cannot keep that as my like complete day. So maybe sections of my day I can be more like an unschooler, but overall I cannot be an unschooler. I just like, I would get anxious. Maybe I'll start, getting angry with my children. Maybe, it's gonna hurt our relationship probably. So I didn't want to do that. Secondly, I also had like logical reasons why I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do anything that would hurt their chances later with the choices that they make. Like for example, let's say they're, as they get older, they really are college bound and they want to, they're very academically inclined and they want to go to good colleges or whatever it is. And they realize that, the unschooling kind of neglected certain subjects to the point that they are struggling with them right now. And I didn't want them to turn around and start blaming me for that. And I have heard scary stories of children, really getting upset with their parents that because of the choices they made, So I didn't want that. So, as much as I love that idea and I do it in bits and pieces, I cannot follow that, completely. Same thing with, other things. Like I think I looked into Thomas Jefferson leadership education. And again, that felt like there were some amazing ideas in those seminars that I attended, and I learned from those seminars. But then there were aspects of it which were like, like too much in the air. There's not enough things clearly spoken about. It's not really telling me what I'm supposed to do. So again, going back to the basics and looking at how can I use different ideas within the education realm and make it work for me and my family? And how can I do it in the simplest possible way? Look for win-win situations, combining 2-3 things together, whether it's subjects or whether it's like ideas where your family can benefit. So basically, I'm going to talk about one particular hack that is really helping us right now, and it's related with Charlotte Mason's narration method. So that's what I'm going to share right now. I should breathe and take a sip of water. I feel like I'm like a train, running train. I'm going too fast. Is everybody with me? Am I making sense? Please say yes or no, because I haven't done this live thing in months and I'm kind of going very fast. I feel it. So I'm going too fast, right? No? Yes? I'm going too fast? Okay. I should slow down. Okay. Okay, I'll take a deep breath. And yeah. So coming back to like simple ideas that can make it easier. So now I'm going to share with you a simple idea that I am implementing right now in my home, which is helping me. Okay? Before that, let me share another idea that has worked well. So like, for example, the nature study that we do, I count that as a time for physical exercise for the whole family. So we tend to go, all of us together, or I also go at the same time as my boys are going out on the bikes, so that I get my exercise in. Okay, I get my little bit of workout. They get to be outdoors. I try to do, dhikr at that time, like the evening adhkar or something. And I also use that time to kind of reflect on nature, like it clears my mind. And the boys really benefit from that, because that's like our nature study. We stop on the trail and look at different critters or creatures. Like yesterday, I think we saw the great blue heron again, and we saw some juvenile ones, and then we saw some birds. I think it was we identified it last time. It's called a swallowtail, forked swallowtail something. So, you get the point. So basically we combine a lot of different things that work for different members of the family and try to do it as a common exercise. So this is kind of like a way you create like win-win situations where you're covering different subjects. Okay, you're covering different subjects and they're all meeting different goals. It's like shooting a what is that saying? Shooting a bird with shooting. Okay, never mind. So there is, basically you hit different goals with the same activity. So you look for these kind of things as much as possible. Do it. And like, for example, another example, my son, my older one, I make him read aloud to my younger one, but I select what I'm making him read aloud to the younger one. I usually do it for subjects which need review. So for example, like there was a science curriculum that I had. It's very storybook format. And it's funny, and my older one has a sense of humor. He loves funny books. So it's that kind of a book. But actually it's more catered towards my younger one. So I make the older one read that to the younger one, so that he learns that kind of like, and I have multiple goals with that. Like he will learn to basically, teach somebody else, and teaching is kind of like a narration, right? When you are teaching somebody, you are internalizing what you're learning. So it really solidifies what you have learned. So it does that for him. It's a good review for him. It builds their bond. It helps them spend some time together, and then it's something that he'll enjoy. The book that I selected, I know that he'll enjoy that book too. So they read this book. It's called Sassafras. It's like a science book. It's kind of like fictional. They go on there are these twins who go on adventures, and even in the story, it's siblings who go on adventures. So I put some thought into what I'm giving him, assigning him to read to the younger one, so that it's like a win-win. And then they make a lot of jokes about the story, because they are reading it together, and it's amazing for their bonding, that type of a thing. So you want to create these kind of win-win situations, and I have personally felt that instead of just spending too much time trying to do everything perfectly within a method. Sometimes you can cherry pick here and there and take the best of different ideas and start using your own intuition and your own mind, and trust your gut and come up with these kind of things. Now, coming back to the hack that I talked about at the meeting. So in the beginning we talked about narration, right? So I noticed that my husband gets anxious whenever he has no clue what we are doing. So if we have had a period of him not being aware of what we are doing in our homeschool, he starts to get anxious and he comes and asks me, are you guys going to test the kids? Or are the kids finished with the curriculum? And have you finished this book and that? And I am a very child-led kind of a homeschooler. So I do have curriculums, I use them, but I step away from them every now and then, because I feel like within a homeschool, you cannot be too regimented. You cannot be like a school, because then, it sucks the joy out of that whole experience. So, flexibility is key in homeschooling, right? So what do you do when you have questions like that coming at you? And I understand where he's coming from, because, he's in the workforce. He knows what, he knows that, for him, education is important, and, blah, blah, blah. So, we used to do this presentation night thing 2-3 years ago. And in that presentation night, I used to make the children, like we used to learn some, whatever chapter we did in history, we would keep a night inspired by that chapter, where we present everything we learned in that, history chapter. And we would kind of do an immersive experience for everybody, where we would make the food from that place. We would do a little bit of geography from that place and talk about the geography, or we would do, like we would collect different things, and we would do artwork during the week. So we would show that artwork to my husband, and the kids would do like this entire night where they would like an evening where they would present everything. And that really helped my husband. So so he would feel happy that, we are learning something, or he would learn and he would become a part of the experience that we are, what we are doing. But after a while I stopped doing that, and then the anxiety came back in. So now with the Charlotte Mason method, I know that the more narration that the child does, the better they get at narrating. So narration is like the most important skill in a Charlotte Mason homeschool, and they get better when they do it again and again. So I thought, how about I do this every day? How about I make my children narrate what they learned during the day every evening? So they would go and tell my husband basically what they did and how. So it's kind of like, so if they read something to themselves and they narrated that to me, they would also narrate it to my husband. If I read something to them, they would narrate that to my husband. If we did history, they would narrate that to my husband. So basically they spend like a good half hour with their dad every day, and they narrate what they learned during the day. And it's amazing. It's been great. We've been doing this for like the everyday thing. We've been doing this for at least 4 or 5 months now, and it's great. And that's what I really wanted to share, because what ends up happening is they are all the benefits that I discussed about narration, they get those benefits. Then they also get excited. I don't know, there's a different kind of enthusiasm that they have when they're talking to their dad, because I think they know that dad doesn't know. Like when I ask them for a narration after reading, they know I already know what was in that chapter, right? So it's not as charming for them to kind of tell me what is happening in the passage. But when my husband is kind of listening, they know they are coming to they're giving him like brand new information. So they are very excited. They are like, Dad, what used to happen on the Silk Road? There used to be these bandits, and this happened and that happened, and they are very excited. And my husband really finds that very reassuring, and I noticed a world of a difference in his anxiety level. And we all know that homeschooling is like a family decision. it's something that affects every member of the family. It changes the lifestyle of the entire family. It's kind of like swimming against the tide, and it's scary for everybody. So having the entire family kind of bond over what we are learning and be aware and confident about what we are doing is very important. And I feel like this addresses that in the most beautiful way. So, when I was doing this meeting, a lot of other sisters actually told me after the meeting that they can, it resonated with them. They recalled whenever their children did this, the husbands were really happy, the spouses were really happy about what they're learning, and they get excited, and the kids are excited. So it's kind of like they could relate with it, and I'm just doing it more consciously and planning for it. So it's been amazing. So again, they are basically getting the dad up to speed with what they're doing. Another benefit is that my husband, because he knows now exactly what they're learning, he has more conversations related to what we're learning. So for example, like we were talking, we've been reading My Side of the Mountain. So the kids talk about, foraging and living in the mountains, and like basically they've been talking about backpack camping and all those type of things, and my husband's suddenly interested in that. So he's been pulling up those kind of documentaries on the weekends for them to watch, or like even what we're doing in history, because he knows what we're doing. We end up having conversations like I think we were talking about colonization, because I think we were reading it in some other book or something, and then he talked about how it was in India for our parents, and like, so it brings a lot of different it makes the educational experience more wholesome, and everybody ends up knowing what we are doing. And then since we know what we are doing, we can discuss it more over dinner, or when we step out, or when we are just hanging out together as a family. So I think this has been amazing even for that. And I get to also kind of get a second review. So whenever they are narrating back to their dad, I see more details come out, because they're talking in a different tone. And so what I would miss during the day when they're narrating, I kind of noticed that, actually they got much more than what they narrated back to me. Because like I said, when they're talking to their dad, they know that they are giving him the information, like for him it's brand new information, as compared to when they're giving the narration back to me, when I have already read to them. They know Mama knows what we are going to narrate. So it's a different level of excitement, and so they end up interjecting a lot of their thoughts and ideas, and even like more details into the narrations with their dad. And so it's been great. So I would say that this has addressed a lot of things, with related to anxiety that the husbands experience, or the stress that it adds sometimes. Like what are we really doing all day long? And I have stopped feeling, did we do enough today? Because it feels like a lot when they do that review with dad and they narrate everything. It seems a lot, because I think they want to really show their dad that we did a lot. So they come back and they really try to pull in everything that they experienced during the day. They even come back and explain to him even the journal pages. And they tell him every detail on what they did in the journal page, and how what was the idea behind it. And then like yesterday my son actually did a drawing about how you can solve the oil spill problem. And this is because he attends a different program where they discuss solutions of real world problems. So he made a beautiful journal, and he came back to my husband and said, Dad, I think I have an idea for this. And then my younger one last night, he said, I innovated a new idea to solve some problem. I don't remember now. So it's kind of like, it just becomes like, they start competing with each other a little bit too, in trying to show dad that, we did this. And I think it helps all of us. It helps all of us as a family. So it's been amazing. And that's why I wanted to share this. I'm already a fan of Charlotte Mason's ideas, and, narration is amazing. I think out of all her 20 principles, narration is kind of like the cornerstone of her method. And I don't know everything that she recommends. I don't really do much of picture study and some of the other things, but there are many aspects of her style and, ideas that resonate with me. And this is one of them, and it's really helped us a lot. I mean, last 4 months, especially with the new business going on, I was starting to feel anxious that, whether I'm doing enough, and, and I have stepped away from a lot of things which were requiring a lot of like one-on-one with the children, and more of like, so we do like this one big read aloud, and then they narrate back, and then they have to do some of their own personal reading, and then they narrate back, and then then we also do like, we do a structured amount of time with math, where we put a timer and do a little bit of math. And then we do the outdoors is everyday thing. We have to do that, like as a family. Alhamdulillah, that's a blessing. Sometimes if it's not the walk, then we just go for a swim, or we do something together. And then this kind of, the review that we sit down together and do at night, kind of brings everything together. And I love the way they narrate to their dad. And like I was speaking about earlier, how they draw the different ideas together, and they kind of, instead of like, picking pieces of information and talking about it, they kind of bring it together and they start giving their opinions. And which is amazing, which is supposed to happen at a later stage of narration. Like this book, if you want to know more about, how to do narration, this book, Know and Tell by Karen Glass, she talks about, she has a diagram here where she talks about what happens when a child is more experienced narrator. They start putting their opinions in. So I've started to see that happen with the children, especially my older one. And with my younger one, it's beginning. I just started with him, so he's still like, the first couple of times he was like blank. He's like, I don't know what I should narrate. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's been amazing. And if you guys are looking for books to learn about the Charlotte Mason method, this is the first book. For the Facebook guys, this is the first book. Okay, and this book has a lot of ideas, what things you can do with a young child. So I just found out a couple of days ago that Charlotte Mason's, this book was actually a compilation of different lectures she gave to women, to mothers. So she was actually raising money for her church, and by giving these ladies lectures. She used to call it ladies lectures, and that got compiled into this book later on. And so that's why it's such a, like, you feel when you're reading it, it's like an advice being given to a parent, more than, like when you read other educational philosophies, you kind of know that it's talking from a very academic angle, and talking to educators, but this is really like talking to mothers. So I would highly recommend, if you're like a young mom. It's a dense read. Another alternative to this is, I think there is the sixth book that I have. It's in that modern English, so you can look for the same thing in modern English. So this is the sixth book in the series. This is more like her overarching philosophy, and this looks like it's written more for the educators and things like that, and it's very dense read though. You have to go slow. I can't, I don't read more than a few pages. It's filled with gems. It's amazing. I get blown away. And this is a woman who's a religious woman, so as a Muslim I can see her focus on the moral upbringing of the child, the developing their relationship with God, and her focus on the like kind of like tarbiyah aspect that we look for. So I really, really, really love her approach. And I actually, when I was reading this, it kind of boosted my confidence, because a lot of things that she talks about, I was naturally doing it, or maybe it's so it comes from such a common sense and natural point of view that I think it would resonate with everybody, every mother out there. So it kind of really boosted my confidence, because I was feeling that, oh, she's talking about all those things that I personally experienced to be working with our family, like the nature walks. I was already doing it to help myself and help the boys kind of get their energy out, and I was anyways doing adhkar at that time. And then she talks about how when you go out in nature and you kind of observe things. She's talking about the habit of observation, and that's what we do, right? Like the Quran recommends that you look at the nature and you reflect on the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like, everything around you is a sign of God, and they become a means for you to connect, it's like alama, right? It's signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which draw your attention to the one who made them, those things. So it's amazing how it kind of overlaps with our ideas, as a Muslim. So amazing stuff in this book. And this book is more of like her overall philosophy. I'm still reading this. I'm not done with this. Oh my God, did I lose Facebook, guys? Oh my God. Oh, it died. Okay, so I know I have been all over the place with this session. I don't do the live thing, and I'm not very good with this thing, looking at the camera and talking. But I hope to get better and better, inshallah, with time. This is another book. I have not read this book at all, but this is something that people recommend a lot. It's an easier read, but I think I couldn't even get past the beginning few pages. But a lot of people find this very difficult to read. So if you're like that kind of a person, this one is available online. So if you go to amblesite.com, they have the modern English version of this in an online format. So you can see it. You can see it, and somebody's saying I can't read it because it is okay. So yeah, it is because it's the mirror image. So it says Home Education by Charlotte Mason. This one says For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay. I hope I'm saying her name right. And this one is, so basically this is the 6th book. She has a series of books she has written. Okay? 6 books. This is the volume 1 and this is the volume 6. And these two is, a lot of people say that if you read these two, you get the gist of, her ideas. So that's how it is. And the book that I showed in the beginning by Karen Glass is this one. This is a very easy read, very quick, more of the practical stuff, how you do narration and stuff like that. So that's that. And I think I'm good with everything. I think I spoke about everything. Does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, please type in. Because I feel like I'm talking to myself. Any questions? There is a time lag. If you have any questions, you can type in right now. I can see that there are 6 people online, and I lost the guys on Facebook because my phone died. My iPad died. Where is it? Unfortunately. Oh, do you use an actual curriculum? Yes. But it's a mixture of many different things. And I noticed that I also don't stick to the grade level because, So for math, I'm using translated books from Russia, which is not lining up very well with the US standards. So every now and then I will go back to Singapore math. Yeah, I tend to go with so Hannah's saying you seem to go with your children's interest and create your curriculum as you go. Yeah, in some subjects, not overall. So that's what I was talking about in the beginning, where I explained that, I like the child-led and the unschooling approach, but I know I can't do that because it would not work for me. I would get anxious. So I don't do that fully. I do it in bits and pieces. And I also, I don't let that be the total day. So there are portions of the day where I'm very structured. And then there is a lot of time which is very unstructured. But by unstructured, I don't mean like it's not intentional. It's very intentional. I know what I'm doing. Like, alhamdulillah, I feel I can see the benefits of those things. So I do it in a particular way. Like the morning journal, I think I posted about it 2-3 days ago. So the morning journal, I started out with, making it like a writing practice thing. And then I eventually realized that I want them to learn to express themselves and, give me an idea what they're interested in that time, instead of making it more about a writing exercise. So I started giving them like blank paper, and I don't tell them anything what they're supposed to do, and they always end up drawing something that they are interested in right now, and that helps me plan other things. Like for example, I was sharing, like I think 2 days ago, I was sharing like my son's camera pictures, and that kind of helped me when I was planning this business thing, that maybe I should go in this direction, because we can do the photography with my son, and involve him in a real life activity where he also learns the photography and it also helps the business, so he can contribute in that. So that morning journal time is very unstructured. Like first 1 hour is very unstructured. I don't tell them what to do. They play usually, or they draw, and most of the times they draw. They journal about whatever is on their mind, and it gives me an idea what to do in the later part of the day. But I do have some structure. It's not, but I do mix and match. I don't know if that answers your question, Hannah. Maybe I'm confusing everybody by these. How do you guys do these lives? I feel like an idiot right now, staring at a phone and talking. Anybody else has any questions? What is your opinion on required creative writing? Oh, don't ask me. I don't know. I mean, it's good. I guess it's not bad. It doesn't work for my children. Yeah, that's all I can say. It doesn't work with my children. So, and from what I have, like I explained about the Charlotte Mason approach to writing, that makes more sense to me. So when they are retelling orally, they are expressing what they learned. So, and which is like a pre-writing skill. And when they are ready, you are going to basically teach them how to transcribe that, right? And write it down. So, and that happens at a later stage. So that makes sense. I have tried the required creative writing, but it doesn't work with my kids. So based on my personal experience, I wouldn't go in that direction. If they really want to express something, I will write it down. Like, how Julie, brave writer, Julie Bogart says that if they have ideas and they want to write it down, you be there, the person who writes it down for them. So they get that outlet for their expression, their creative expression. So you're being like the helper in getting the creative ideas out. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know, at this point, my sons, they both love the sketching. They do it every morning. And I think that's good enough for us. And I do make them do like some kind of copy work or prepare dictation, which is again like, prepare dictation is again like Charlotte Mason concept, where she argues that, if they have like a good idea about the sentence structures and things like that, they will learn to, form good sentences. So at this point, when they're very young, they are not really ready, they say, for creative writing. But I have seen kids who are ready for that. Like my own my brother-in-law's daughter, like my niece, she's very good with writing. She writes poems and but she goes to public school. I don't know if it's a skill she acquired through that, or she's just naturally drawn to it. I'm not sure, but she does it. So yeah, I don't want to say something wrong. It just doesn't work for me. Yeah. Anybody else has any question? Oh, Alina, thank you. It's reassuring. Thank you so much. Can you give more insight on CM science learning style? Oh yeah, I didn't mention this. So when I was reading, I think it's right here in the beginning of this book. So when I was reading this home education, the first book, and I can't remember where it is in this, where she talks about these questions that you should ask the child. And I was like, I do that all the time. Like, I think one of my friends told me that your teaching style with science is like Socratic method, like a fancy word. but because I teach science at my co-op, and science is my thing. So so she was telling me your teaching style is very Socratic. Like you ask questions, you make them think about things. And so when I saw these list of questions, that I can't find it right now, but she has these list of questions that she suggests you ask the child when you go out, and I can't find it. If I find it, I'll take a picture and share. And I was amazed that she's talking about something that I already do. And I noticed that I tend to like curriculums which call for a lot of observation and discussion. Like the Nibel, I don't know, I have the book here. I can show you guys that book. So, one second. So this one is my favorite science curriculum, and it's actually, I think I later on found out that this is actually very Charlotte Mason, like it aligns well with her approach. So Charlotte Mason basically, with nature study and with other things, she's calling the attention on things. One of the ideas is she's developing habits, so habit of attention and observation, and then even reflection, like you think about how you can basically call their attention to these things, and like observe things and reflect on them and try to go for, approach science from that angle. I have a full video on this. I don't know where I have put it though. Is it on IGTV? I think it's on IGTV, yeah. So I'll try to link it after this thing ends on my feed. I will try to link it. I have a full review of this science curriculum. It's called Building Foundations of Scientific Understanding. And I just love this. My co-op buddies know. I love this book so much. And I use this to teach at the co-op. Yeah. So, thank you, Alina, for typing it out. Thank you, my dear. So, Alina is my co-op buddy. And her ID is Teaching with Tawakkul. So she's helping answer some of the questions. So yeah, I do have a full video on this. And this is the next level of the book. I haven't used this one yet. I think I used this with the younger ones, and then I think we were doing the STEM Scouts. So yeah. So that's that. I want to add that I feel like if anybody is trying to teach Islamic studies, they should make nature study a part of it. I think I'll do an entire video on how we should approach Islamic studies with the children. Because alhamdulillah, this is amazing. And her ideas are so much in line with, our goals. It's really nice. What else? Any other questions? Oh, it's saying that I have 56 seconds remaining for this live to end. So then what do? You do another live? I don't know how it works. So basically this thing is going to end, I think, in 46 seconds. Anybody has any questions, quickly send it to me, or I will put that box which lets you ask questions on my feed, and then you can send me more questions. I think I should sign off then, because I don't know how to restart this whole thing again. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I know I was all over the place, and seriously, this is hard. I generally don't have any problem talking. I can talk for hours, but I need to see a person in front of me. This is weird, like staring at my phone and talking. What about her approach on math? She actually makes children do math narration. Yeah, I think the time is ending, but Alina, I'm going to answer